Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 107. On this episode of the podcast, Jen interviews Valerie McTavish on the subject of digital marketing in the context of looking for a job. Do you know what your online presence says about you? Does it depict the kind of person you want a potential employer to see in that all-important step between receiving your resume and deciding whether or not to interview you? I thought I should check to see what my online presence says about me. It turns out I'm either a cancer surgeon, a regional president of a bank, the CEO of a premium mobile ad network, or dead. Apparently I don't need this job after all.
Hey everyone, this is Jen, and welcome to Christmas week and to episode 107 in the year 2016. I'm not sure if you're listening to this in real time or in retrospect, but anyhow, I'm glad that you are here and that you are listening. Today, I'm bringing a conversation that I had with Valerie McTavish, who is a digital content and marketing strategist. She's an award-winning producer and writer with a passion for marketing. And after having worked for about 20 years in traditional communication, including broadcast, journalism, and advertising, she shifted to digital, and she's excited by the constantly changing landscape that is digital media. So I'm going to have a conversation with Valerie today around job search strategies that are based on digital marketing strategies. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Valerie McTavish. Hi everyone, this is Jen Swanson with the Communication Diva Podcast, and today I'm welcoming Valerie McTavish. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I'm excited and I'm taking notes. I've got my pencil in hand here for the topic that we're talking about today. But first I'd like you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do. And I know this is a hard question.
Sure. I am a digital marketing strategist. I also do content for digital marketing strategies. And I came to this by way of media. So my background is in video production, film production, broadcasting, and journalism with just a slight side journey into advertising for about 5 years.
Okay. And so now you are helping small businesses. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, so I help small businesses and entrepreneurs to create a digital strategy that is effective without it taking them a whole lot of time. And anyone who's ever dabbled in entrepreneurship knows that digital marketing has a way of taking up all of your time, and then you don't actually have time to do your business. Well, so that's what I do with my strategies, is we find the most effective way forward.
That's what I've heard, is that it's 10% content creation and 90% marketing.
Yeah, which doesn't leave any time for actually creating product or servicing your clients.
Exactly. So today we're going to be talking about using these basic strategies in a job search.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at when we first started talking about the idea of helping people with their job search, I was like, well, how do I, as a digital marketer, what does that have to do with job search? And then I realized when you're looking for a job, you're effectively marketing yourself. So why not apply the things that digital marketers are doing to someone who's actually looking for a job? And I think it makes perfect sense. As soon as I sort of started looking at it that way, I realized it's exactly what people need to be doing. And so I have 4 main steps that digital marketers follow that job seekers can also follow if they want to get ahead.
Fabulous. All right. Well, let's launch right into it.
Okay. So the first tip that I have for people looking for a job, if they want to follow the digital marketing strategy, is to really look at who are you? Now, I know that that's a tricky question. Seems like an easy question, right? You know your name, you know your qualifications. But what I'm talking about is, who are you really? And who do you want to be when you're presenting yourself to that ideal employee, that person that you want to get a job from. So you need to really think about beyond your qualifications, beyond sort of what's on your resume. How do you want to create your personal brand? What do you stand for? And that can take a long time for people to figure out, but it's really important because who you are is going to really determine who you attract to you and who's going to be willing to give you the interview.
So we construct our lives online. I know people, put just the best pictures on Facebook or Instagram, and it looks like everyone's always having a party or they're always looking beautiful. What does our online presence say?
Well, this is part of the problem, especially for people who've been online for a long time, and maybe they started out online when they were a lot younger and not really thinking about putting their best foot forward. So you really do want to make sure that once you figure out who you are, that your online presence matches that, right? You want to make sure that when people go to look you up, and they will, as soon as they look at your resume and they say, okay, this person's qualified, I guarantee you the next thing they do is look you up online. So the best way that you can check what they're seeing and check whether or not your online presence matches the persona that you want to be putting forward and your true self is to Google yourself, which kind of sounds like an egotistical thing to do, but it's really important for you to understand what's out there.
I did that once and it was a bit shocking.
Surprising, isn't it?
How much they know.
Exactly. And what images come up as well. So that's something that a lot of recruiters and a lot of people in a hiring position will do because it gives them the insight beyond the resume. And frankly, it saves them a lot of time because if the resume looks good, but it doesn't match what's online, they might actually not bother with an interview. So you're not being given the benefit of the doubt. So that should scare people a little bit. So the best thing to do, Google yourself, like I said, see if there's anything on there that isn't as flattering. And then you want to, especially with Facebook, you want to go back and just clean house. Get rid of any photos that maybe don't depict you in such a positive light.
It could take hours.
Absolutely. But how badly do you want this job? Right? I mean, if you want to get ahead and you want to get a good job, it's worth investing a couple of hours. You only have to do it once. But it's worth investing the time because this is your brand, right? You want to make sure that people understand who you are today and what you represent today. So those pictures from back in your party days, you definitely want to delete those if they're on your own feed. And if you can't delete them, then go in and untag yourself from any of your friends' photos so that you are not being found online in a light that maybe you don't want your potential employer to see you in.
Now, do you want to tailor your persona to the position that you're applying for?
Well, this is a little bit, it's the same way that you would tailor your resume. You want to tailor it within truth, right? It's really important for your online persona to be authentically you. You don't want to present yourself as something that you're not. You don't want to pretend to be something. Just like you wouldn't fudge your resume, you could highlight the things that are important to you. I mean, one of the things about understanding who you are is also understanding who you want to work for and the kind of job that you want. It's what we in digital marketing call finding the ideal customer. So for a job seeker, it would be finding the ideal employee. Once you know who that employee is or what company that is, then you can really sort of tailor things towards that because that's what you're striving for. Those are your aspirations.
So if you have an unrelated blog or you're on Pinterest and you happen to like home decor, is that stuff okay?
Absolutely, because any employer is going to want to know that you're a well-rounded person. They're not going to want to look at you online and find that the only things, say you're in the industry of, I don't know, rodeo, okay? You're looking for a rodeo job and your main interest is rodeo. If they go online and they see that you only like rodeo and that you only have like 2 or 3 friends, they might catch on that this whole persona has been created just for this job. So you want to show that you have a history of being online, that you have other interests, because that makes you a well-rounded person. And it also goes to something that's called corporate fit. And that's something that is becoming more and more important to employers when they're looking at whether or not someone is, first qualified and second will fit in and be a good team member. And so if you have a blog that you've written, that's just going to show a potential employer that you have interests, that you have the ability to stick to something, possibly that you're a good writer and you have communication skills. Those things are great. Obviously you'll know if there's something out there that you don't want out there, then you might reconsider it. But for the most part, who you are is important to present, because if you not just want to get the job, but keep the job, you should be really honest about who you are.
Absolutely. And the resume, I always tell students and clients that the resume is just the very, very beginning introduction, and that the interview process is where your personality shines through. And this would be true of your online persona as well. It's where your personality and your interests show through. Exactly.
It's sort of that bridge between the resume and the interview. And I think for a lot of employers now, that middle step is really the deciding factor between who gets the interview and who doesn't.
So for people who aren't online a whole lot, is it worth getting themselves online?
I do think that it's important to have an online presence, even if it's not something that you're going to do on a regular basis. But again, you want to be authentic about it. Right. You don't want to just jump on. Anyone who knows anything about social media is going to see that you have created a Facebook page in the last 12 hours and populated it with pictures of your dog. That's gonna not ring true for them. However, a great place to make sure you have a profile is LinkedIn, because it's a way for a potential employer to see that your resume hasn't been totally tailored to them, to see that you are in a professional capacity and that you're putting yourself out there and that you're willing to list your credentials. Now, the benefit to being on LinkedIn for a little bit longer is that you can hopefully start to get recommendations and referrals, which also goes to helping that employer want to give you the interview. Because if they can, it's like you're doing their job for them. They don't have to phone your referrals. It's like they get to phone your referrals before they meet you, because they're already listed on your profile.
And are there better places to be? I know that I was under the impression that you can spread yourself too thin on social media. And as an entrepreneur myself, I'm trying to be on all these different platforms like Medium and Quora and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. It goes on and on and on. And
it's
I just
dizzying,
don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't have time to keep up with all of that. So what would you recommend for somebody who's seeking a job as far as how many platforms they might be on?
Well, this is something that I tell my clients all the time. And that is, spend your time where your customers spend their time. So there's no point in you being on a social media platform that is not popular with your ideal customer, or in this case, your ideal employer. If your ideal employer is active and functioning on Facebook, be on Facebook. If your ideal customer is active and functioning on Instagram or Pinterest, or if they actually have like a Reddit account, then be there. And that's really what you want to be doing, is you want to be tailoring your efforts to where they're going to be most effective. Because as you said, it's crazy. You could spend your entire day on social media, and that just sucks up your time, and it's not the best use of your time, because you're not going to get that return on effort.
And that's why I have to go to the chiropractor, because I'm hunched over my computer all day.
You got social media shoulders.
Yeah. So online persona, so that's controlling your image and your message and your communication on the internet.
Yeah, and spending a little bit of time cleaning house and going into the back archives to make sure that who you used to be is who you want to present today.
All right. So then what do we do?
So it's a little bit of what we were just talking about. The next step is to what I call enter the arena of influence. Now, some people might call this stalking, but I call it research.
Creeping.
I call it research. Creeping. So what you want to do is, again, looking at that ideal customer, looking at that ideal employer, you want to find out where they are, and then you want to be there. And this is a little bit more than just the platform. So for example, if you know that they're on LinkedIn, you want to be on LinkedIn. The next step to entering the arena is to join some groups that they're part of, right? So that you're now within their circle of influence. You can do this on Facebook. You can do this on Instagram. You can do this on pretty much any social media platform. Being where they are and where they're interacting gives you the opportunity to interact with them before you even send a resume. Imagine if you were to send a resume and someone recognized your name because you said something insightful, made a comment on one of their articles within that sort of circle of peers, people that they consider to be their peers. You're already going to have that leg up. Not only that, but it gives you the opportunity to get a sense of where their company is going, to do some research on their thought process, to get an idea of what they like and don't like, and make sure that it matches what you want to be doing. So you may discover by doing this, by entering the arena, you may discover, you know what? They're not my ideal employer. I actually don't agree with what they're doing. I don't want to work at a company like that.
Because that's important too. That's really important to know.
Absolutely. A good job isn't just about the good job that you can get. A good job is a job that you enjoy because you're part of the journey. You're part of what the company is doing. And you can't determine that just from an interview. So you need to do your research too. Before we were talking about who are you and that your potential employers are going to be looking you up, do the same to them. Figure out what they're all about. Figure out what their employees are saying about working there. And that's the other great thing about the circle of influence and entering the arena is that there are lots of places where you'll be able to see people that work at that company and be able to connect with them and be able to be a part of groups that they're in, because you never know what kind of information they might be able to provide you about the company, and you never know when they might be able to help influence the decision.
And you want to be careful when you're doing that you're not blatantly sucking up to get a job.
Well, absolutely. I mean, honestly, all of this is about being authentic. Digital marketing gets a bit of a bad rap, right? Because everyone thinks it's a racket and a game and everyone's just trying to figure out how to make someone buy something. But what it really is building connections and building communication. And that's exactly what you want to be doing when you're looking for a job. You want to be getting all the information that you can so that you're totally informed, and you want to be making authentic connections with people. And that's what you can do when you're in that same space. Groups are such a great place to make those kinds of connections because you can really authentically be having conversations and be present and visible to your potential employer without you ever having to say, hey, I want a job, That's
good because you can smell a rat a mile away. I mean, I often get people who want to be guests on the show sending me messages about, oh, I loved your latest episode and blah, blah, blah. And I can tell they never actually ever listened to it because what they want to talk about has nothing to do with workplace or with communication.
Yeah.
And I think, why? You haven't done your research.
Yeah. And I know that you're in a couple of Facebook groups and immediately the people who have joined that group to promote themselves.
Yes.
And the group knows it too. And I don't know who they think they're fooling when they join and then 10 minutes later they post an ad in the group. It's really about caring about what's going on. And this can be another litmus test for you. If you're joining these groups where your ideal employer is participating and being a part of, and you might be looking at individuals and you might be looking at company activities, but if you're joining these groups and you're bored and you're not interested and you have nothing to contribute, you might want to rethink who your ideal employer is. So this is a good exercise for self-discovery as well.
Just to go back for 1 second, when you're cleaning up your online persona, is it wise to clean up what groups you belong to?
Yes and no. I think we all know the red flag groups.
Right.
But anything that you may have joined on a lark and you're not participating in anymore, any group that any page that you may have liked in the past because someone asked you to, or it was a former interest, there's no reason to stay a part of those groups or to continue to like those pages. So go ahead and clean those up. Go ahead and update is probably the best word for it. Update it to your current status. Update it to your current interests. But if you love horses and it has nothing to do with the type of job you're looking for, there's no reason for you to not continue to love horses. If it's a group you enjoy and a group you participate in, then stay in that group. Again, it goes to being well-rounded.
Right.
And on the, the other thing that I think is important to say is that, we often will try to make our profiles too vanilla. And we try to make it so appeasing to everyone to the point where we're no longer being true to ourselves. So, the obvious areas are religion and politics, right?
Right.
A lot of people think you shouldn't be vocal about these things. But if that is who you truly are, and if you are the kind of person who wants to be able to talk about those things and wants to work for a company that's going to be okay with you having the views and opinions or faith that you have, why would you clean that up?
Exactly.
It's only going to create an uncomfortable situation once you get the job. Now, if you feel like you could get a job and not have political conversations or not, be upfront and open about your religion and that's fine by you, then sure, clean it up. Just do what is authentic to you. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to maintain this persona that you're creating. You don't want it to be so unlike you that it's work to try to continue to be this person you've created.
That would be acting.
Exactly.
And yeah, authenticity is a core value of mine, and I hope that that is something people consider when they're doing this.
I mean, you go to work to do the job. You don't want to have to work at being yourself too.
Right. It's just bringing back some episode of Friends.
Yeah.
In my mind right now. So online persona, and then entering sort of the arena that the employer is in, and then what else?
Circle of influence. And a lot of people are challenged by this idea of, well, how am I supposed to know who's looking at my resumes? How am I supposed to know where they hang out? How am I supposed to know all of this information? And it really is easier than you think. You get to play detective a little bit, because once you start, LinkedIn is a really good place because most companies have a profile on LinkedIn. So you can see immediately who the influencers are in that company. And then you can follow whatever groups they're following. You can look them up on Facebook and see if they have an open profile that states what groups they're part of. You can look them up on other social media platforms. And sometimes they'll even have a personal website, or the company's website might have links to their social media accounts. So you can see who they follow and you can see what groups they're a part of. It's really not that hard. It does take a little bit of effort, though. It's fun, though. It's kind of fun to sleuth around.
Good. So what's next?
Okay, so this is when we want to actually take it to the next step. So you're hanging out in the areas that they're hanging out online, and you're connecting with them in a third party kind of way. So it's not a direct connection. You're sort of being seen in the group. You might be commenting on their content. You might be commenting on their comments, that kind of thing. The next step is to take it to the next level, to make a direct contact. Now, it's really important when you make this next step that you do it in an authentic way. So this is not a 24-hour strategy here. This is not something you're going to be able to pull off, the day you see a job posted. This is when you're really looking at your ideal employer, the dream job, right? So you're working towards it. So this is when you've made some connections with them. You can go ahead and make a direct contact. So LinkedIn is great for this. If somebody posts a blog or an article on LinkedIn, and you make a comment and they respond to you, that's your open door. That's your opportunity to then go ahead and ask them to be a contact, ask them to connect with you. And when you do that, and this is really, really important, automatically LinkedIn creates this little message that says something like, I'd like to add you to my contacts. Right?
Yeah.
And you should never leave that. You should never let LinkedIn send that message for you. What you want to do is you want to be very specific, and you want to say, I'm a member of this group with you, or I really appreciated your article on X, Y, and Z, or thanks very much for your comment on my comment with regards to this. I'd really love to add you to my contacts. Yeah. When they see that, because people of influence get contact requests all the time. But if you do it closely after you've had a loose contact with them. Asking them for the contact hopefully will ring a bell for them. And if they click through and actually look at it, then they'll be reminded, oh yeah, that's right. This person commented, or I had this exchange with this person, and they'll accept the contact. So you want to take full advantage of that opportunity.
And some people have those automatic responses programmed into Twitter and into LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I wonder about turning those off in this case.
Absolutely. You want these connections to be authentic. You don't want anyone to think that you're trying to game them, right? There are no shortcuts here.
Yeah, I don't like those things anyway, because you know that everybody who connects with that person is getting the same message back. And it's really not personal.
Well, and truthfully, those are a volume game. I recommend those to my clients who are receiving many new, like for example, on Twitter, if they're getting double-digit new followers a day, then go ahead and have an automatic response, because you're probably going to get, I don't know, maybe a 3% click-through or 2% click-through rate, which is significant when you're dealing in volume.
Right.
When you're looking for a job and you're trying to target your ideal employer, it's not a volume game, right? So in that case, quality over quantity.
Perfect. So you're taking that next step, which might be a little challenging, but you're actually making a connection.
That's right. And then the next step is even scarier. Because we're now leaving the surface of social media, the surface level of communication of social media, and we're making real one-to-one connections. So hopefully you've connected online in a way that is still fairly safe within the environment, because lots of people connect that way. The next step is to actually ask for a meeting, to actually ask for a face-to-face, one-on-one connection. Now, it doesn't have to be face-to-face physically in the same space. It could be a Skype meeting. There's lots of room for this within the digital world. We don't have to be in the same city anymore. But it really is important to get that face-to-face time. Now, you have to have a reason to ask for it. Maybe you've already applied for the job and you want to let them know, hey, I'm just helping you connect the dots here. My resume is probably already on your desk. We've connected this way before. Would really love to chat with you more about this opportunity.
Which isn't an ask for an interview, or is it?
It can be. If there's actually a job at play, then definitely ask for an interview. And taking that extra step is already going to put you above everyone else on that stack of resumes, right? Especially because you've already connected with them on another level, right? And all you're really doing is reminding them, hey, we're already kind of connected here. Let's take it one step further. So asking for that interview or asking for an informational interview or a meet and greet. These things are really not as hard as they feel. Part of what's happened with social media is we feel connected, but we fear the idea of actually connecting. So there's this fake sense of connection that exists. And it's in order for you to actually get a job, you need to be able to make that real connection. So yes, if there's a job already posted, if you've applied, ask for the interview. Don't wait for the call, especially if you've already connected within the social media realm. And the other one is, if this is your ideal employer, but there's no job posting right now, if you've made a sort of connection, then asking them for 10 minutes for an informational interview is something that a lot of people will grant you, because frankly, not a lot of people have the cojones to ask for it.
No kidding.
So, people are a lot more generous than we give them credit for. So we assume that people don't have time for us.
And would that be like telephone or Skype? It would be for 10 minutes, or would you, if you were in the same city, would you actually say, can we grab a coffee? Or
if you're in the same city, absolutely offer to buy them a coffee. If you're not in the same city, then ask them for, I highly recommend the Skype call over a phone call, because you get the face-to-face.
Right.
And so that's really important. If you're connected on Facebook, you could ask to FaceTime. There's lots of different ways to connect.
Does generation play into this? Like generationally? I'm just curious on online social media, generational differences, because I know some of the younger students that I do interview workshops for, who are 16 to 20, are not on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have to be that's right back to that earlier point, which is, look, you need to be connecting where they are. You need to go where they are. This is your ideal employer, so you need to hang out in their playground.
Right.
Right.
If they're any older than 20, they probably are on Facebook.
Exactly. And it's easy to find that out. Right? You can just research it. And LinkedIn is such a great arena for this because it doesn't really have those age boundaries. Generally speaking, people who are in a professional capacity are on LinkedIn, no matter what their age is.
That's good to know.
Well, and it's also important for people under 20 to know, because if they're not already there, it's a good idea to get there, because the people that you're going to be applying to a job for are likely there.
For sure. Yeah, I never thought of that, because I know that, our 16-year-old is definitely not on LinkedIn or Facebook. But
right, but probably not looking for a corporate job at this time.
Not yet.
The other thing is to really look at where the industry is hanging out. There are industry-specific areas for people where people are hanging out, and it's not just defined by age. It's defined by industry.
The connecting in person, whether that be in person physically or via social media or the internet, is the next step in getting yourself that job.
Right. And then when you do get the interview, which again is that face-to-face connection, that's when I would suggest that you could take a look at digital marketers' strategy again and do what we call close the sale. So there are 4 basic steps to closing the sale. And I'm going to reveal them to you. They're highly top secret.
Okay.
Only digital marketers know this now.
I feel like we should have a drum roll or something.
So the main script that you want to follow when you are finally at the point to pitching yourself. I mean, this is what you're doing in an interview. You're pitching yourself. You're assessing whether you want to work there. You're assessing if the job is the right fit for you. But ultimately, at the end, you want to actually propose yourself as the ideal candidate, right? So what you want to do is you want to follow a script that is proven in digital marketing for closing the sale. So the first thing you want to do is you want to show that you understand what the role entails, right? You understand what the company needs. Now, this is not to say that you're going to parrot what was in the job description, right? You're not just showing off a good memory. You're showing that you have an understanding of what that company needs, and possibly beyond what the job description says.
So you've done your research.
You've done your research and you have independent thought about it. Right? This is really important. I mean, we're talking about not necessarily entry-level positions here. So we're talking about that you, again, because you're part of these groups on social media, because you're interested in the industry, because you're doing your research, you are in a position to say, this is what I understand about what you need right now. This is what, this is really where we're going with this position, right? And so you're showing a higher level of understanding than the fact that you read what the job description was, right? The next step is that you have the answer, that you are the solution, so that you not only understand what they need, but you understand how to give them what they need. Pretty straight. It makes so much sense when you hear it that way, right?
It does.
So I know what you need. I understand what you're missing. I know what the solution is. And then the third point is, I am uniquely qualified to provide you that solution. So not only do I understand your problem, I know your solution, and I'm the person to provide you with that solution, right? This is where you're going to revisit some of the things that are directly related to how you're going to be the best person for the job.
So you're handing yourself over on a silver platter.
That's right. This is where you're pumping yourself up a little bit, and you're making sure that they have looked beyond what's written in the resume, right? You're making sure that they're looking at you as a whole person and what you bring to the team, to the corporate culture, to the job, and to the future of the organization. Right? You're showing off your potential as well. And then the final thing in the whole process, and this could just be 2 or 3 sentences. This isn't a half-hour conversation where you're, dog and pony show up there. This can be done very succinctly in a couple of sentences. But the last thing, and the very most important thing, is that you have to ask for the job.
Haha.
And a lot of people don't think about that.
That's true.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to interview. And they're gone.
Right.
Right? Don't you think that an employer wants to know that you actually want the job? Don't you think they want to know that you're excited about the prospect of working there? Don't you think that they would look upon you very differently if you said, I really want this job. I really believe that I'm the right person and I can bring a lot to you, and I would love for you to give me this job.
It would take reading the room to know whether or not you can ask at the end, I would think.
Yes, absolutely.
Unless you have nothing to lose. But
well, and you know what? That's an important point, because so often we're afraid of what could happen.
Right.
We're afraid of our made up idea of how someone else perceives us. And what we need to do is just put it all out there, because what's the worst that can happen? You don't get the job? Well, you weren't going to get it anyway. Right?
Exactly.
At the very least, you're going to make an impression. Right? And maybe you weren't qualified for this job or someone was more qualified, but you're still going to be remembered by that person. If you put yourself out there and you say, listen, I'm just going to be honest here. I really want this job.
Right.
People will remember you, because most people who are going to sit down and across from that interviewer won't do that. Right?
That's true. I don't know that I've ever heard that suggested before. It's your call to action.
Exactly, the call to action. And that's what you'll see in all digital marketing. When you take a look at any digital marketing that's out there, any sales page that's out there, the last thing is going to be buy now, register today. You can't really do that with the job interview. You can't be like, and in my conclusion, I'd just like to say, hire me now.
Yeah, time's running out. Yeah. That wouldn't be wise.
That would be funny, but no. But like you said, within the context of the communication that's been there, you read the room, but you really do want to let them know that you want the job, and give them that call to action, and let them know either I'm going to follow up with you in a couple of days, or when can I expect to hear from you? And that's when you've finished pitching yourself.
That sounds fantastic. And like a lot of work. So like you said, this wouldn't be something that you decide to suddenly do the night before you're going in for your interview.
Right. And so what we're looking at here is not someone who's applying to 10 jobs a day, right? If you're just looking for a job because you need a job, this isn't necessarily the tactic for you. This is for people who are already in a position and looking to move up. Someone who is willing and ready to hold out for the ideal position, and to really just do the work because it matters to them. We're talking about finding that dream job and landing that dream job. So that's why it takes a little bit longer and it takes a little bit more effort. And along the way, frankly, you're not wasting your time, right? Because you're now involving yourself more in the industry. You're learning from other people in the industry. You're seeing new players in the industry. So whatever industry you're working in, you're going to be expanding your understanding of that industry by doing all of these things.
Which makes you more valuable.
Exactly. And, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, boy, do I ever regret deleting that photo of me on that drunken bender from my Facebook profile, Well,
yeah, you get to a certain age when that's probably a wise thing to do anyway.
Exactly. So, do the work, clean up your persona, figure out who you are and what kind of job you want, and then go for it systematically with a strategy.
That fits so perfectly into my motto that I've rebranded my site with, of get the job, love your work, and advance your career.
Mm-hmm.
It fits
exactly.
perfectly.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
So what's one last thing you want to leave the listener with today?
Well, I want to just reiterate one of the things that we touched on, and that is to be yourself and be authentic. Mm-hmm. I can't express this strongly enough. There is nothing worse than, I've been on the other side of the table. I've hired people, and I've gone through countless interviews and all this all of this process. And I can't tell you how horrible it is when someone has presented themselves a certain way on social media, presented themselves a certain way in an interview, and within a week or two, they can't keep up the facade. Mm-hmm. It's painful for everyone. They're not the right fit for the team. They're miserable. You're miserable. Someone has to get fired. It's awful. It's an awful situation to be in, and it's really avoidable. So just be yourself.
You will find the right fit if you are authentic.
And the thing is, if you have to pretend to be someone else to get the job, it's not the right job for you.
Right.
Right? So that takes us right back to that very first point of, who are you?
That's a big question. The big question
of the day. It's a huge question.
That's great. Well, this is fantastic. I've taken many notes here, and I'm sure people listening have as well. If people want to know more about digital marketing, about what it is that you do, where can they find you?
Yeah. My website is ValerieMcTavish.com. And you'll find all kinds of information about me there. I tend to work with entrepreneurs and small businesses who are already in play. But if you're listening to this and thinking that, geez, it sounds like an awful lot of work to get a job, I'd rather just be an entrepreneur, then...
Because that's not very much work at all.
No, exactly. Well, but if in your discovery of who am I, you discover your ideal employer is yourself, then that's something that's been happening more and more these days.
That is just booming. That is just a booming thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, frankly, digital marketing can be so frustrating for people because, as you said earlier, you don't know where to put your energy. You don't know. If you don't have a good strategy, you can spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and not getting any traction. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's really, I find it very fulfilling to be able to help entrepreneurs get that traction.
And get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this time and all of this information. There's been a lot of value shared today, and we really appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's my passion. I love talking about it. So thank you for having me on your show.
We'll talk again soon.
Okay.
So thank you for listening to my conversation with Valerie McTavish, and you can find her at ValerieMcTavish.com, and I'll have a little bit about her and links to her website on the show notes over at CommunicationDiva.com. And I hope you enjoyed that episode. I have learned a lot, and I really enjoyed speaking with Valerie. So now I'm going to give you my call to action. And I'm hoping that if you did enjoy this show, that you will share it, that you will leave a review on iTunes or on any of the other platforms on which you are listening to this show, that you will come over to the website and give some feedback, ideas for more topics, just to say hello even, because I really appreciate knowing who you are and where you are and what you want to know about for future episodes. So share the episode, tell people about it, talk about it, and leave a review or give me a feedback. And that would be a fantastic Christmas present. And if you're celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you're celebrating Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. If you're not celebrating or you're just enjoying the company of your family and friends, all the best to you. And we will talk again in 2017. Until then, this is Jen Swanson. Take care.